kitchen clock, 2 a.m. Heard the whisper, not again. Little shoes by the door, tiny voice, isn't my fault. You'd change the law if you saw that face, curled on a mattress, hiding in place. Save one child, that's a lifetime turning, that's a future learning what love feels like. Save one child, that's a chain all breaking. Every law we're making should start right now. If it saves one child, write your name, say it out loud. Paper stack on your screen, just some letters from D.C. But in the lines between each phrase, there's a name, there's a name, there's a face, there's a face. We count the votes while they count scars. They'll pray for sleep, we argue stars. Save one child, that's a lifetime turning, that's a future learning what trust feels like. Save one child, that's a door flung open. Every word you've spoken can lift them out. If it saves one child, sign your name, say it out loud, yeah. How many cries till we call it a crime? Everywhere, every time, no borders on their pain. How many times will we wait and see till we finally agree their safety's not a state line thing? It's everything. Save one child, that's a lifetime turning, that's a heartbeat burning through the dark nights. Save one child, that's a past rewritten, every law petition, a promise vowed. If it saves one child, raise your hand, say it out loud. One more name, on the page, we can't change. If it saves one child, if it saves one child, oh, if it saves one child, it's worth it now.
Good evening and welcome to Valentine's Day. Well, anti-Valentine's Day, as you can probably guess. Okay, first of all, big up Shady, The Fallen, and of course, Lady V73. Okay, that track was I put together because of something which came up on Impact Media. The guys over at Impact who were First Amendment auditors, and I say were, they moved into something else. And what they are trying to do over in the States is to make anybody who abuses children, specifically in an SA situation, but I think it should also include anybody who abuses any child in any way, should be given, from a federal point of view over in the States, and make it a federalized punishment mandatory for first offence of life in prison, with no possibility of parole. Now, saying that, they've taken the first step. They put together a petition. In the description is not only the link to Impact Media, and if you haven't already subscribed, please do so. If nothing else, just to get updates through their community posts regarding what's going on and how far they've got, etc. And there is also a link for the online petition. Now, I was going to go back to the Grim Reaper Network being a chat show, not a music show. But when I saw this earlier on today, in fact, yesterday it was, I decided that the best thing for me to do was to advertise it and to dedicate a song to them and to what they're trying to do behind the scenes. And they have moved on from, as I say, from First Amendment stuff. They have also given permission for people to use any and all of their work, and they've released any claim of copyright, which is also great. But this is just how good Impact Media were. So that's what it's all about. You'll see the video again at the end. I have put the links in the pinned area for Impact Media, so that you can just click on that and go over there. You can link up and sign the petition if you so wish, if you're over in the States, and only if you agree. If you disagree, don't worry. I will never hold it against you. Okay, so moving forward, this channel is going back to what it did best. I've had a number of ideas put to me. One of them was get rid of the music off the Grim Reaper Network and go back to producing chat shows, inviting people up. So I'll put the link in the chat if anybody's around and wants to come up. Just remember, please, of YouTube's terms of service, I don't really want to get taken off the air. And I'm going to be putting all music on my new channel, which is the Grim Reaper Music channel. However, that has a specific purpose to the music, and that is regarding mental health, supporting people, caring for people, the people who care for people. That's the theme of the music over there. Okay, it's not going to be political. It's more supporting. But over on here, we're going to be moving forward with linking in with BBA, Bear Britain Audits, and also a couple of other people as well. Is that you, the Fallen? We'll soon find out. 99.9% certain it is. But I always need to make sure first. Hello, Fallen.
What's up?
Hi, it is you.
Yeah, I don't know why. I was tuning in and you went, okay, I'm putting the link there for those of you who want to come up and do the chat thing again. So
Yeah,
I jumped right on.
Yeah, well, I'm moving away from the music on this channel as far as possible. I'll probably just do an intro and an outro. But when this came up, from Impact Media, I thought, you know what? That's worth shouting about, because they are trying to do something. They're trying to change something from a legal point of view. And also, just imagine it. If any of these pedrophiliacs, good word that, even for their first offence, they get life imprisonment, and it becomes a federal, law and minimum standard, I wonder if it'll stop a lot of child abuse.
Well, see, I mean, that's a good question, and it's like you saying that, well, if you don't agree, I won't hold it against you. And it was like, man, when I clicked on there, it says challenge the argument, don't challenge the person, right? When I was going into chat, so it was like, man, all this is like um, a universal thing trying to speak, right? So it's like, I wonder if I challenge this, if you'll still like me or not.
Well, if you
You know
want to
what I mean?
challenge what I'm saying, everyone's allowed to challenge, right? I'm not going to.
Right.
I'm not. I don't fall out with people because they have a different opinion, right? But from a point of view of changing something, I'd like to see the other side of the argument, because I can't see the other side of the argument. I can't see how anyone could disagree
Right.
if it's going
I
to
mean,
stop child abuse.
well,
But there
see,
will be
when you
people out there who will.
right, you said your comment was child abuse, no matter what the abuse is, right? It's like
Correct.
stop the abuse no matter what it is. It's like, there we go again. Who's going to call for a legal or a government to start claiming then what abuse is, right? Like, who gets to challenge what abuse is, and who gets to say that was abuse? And it's like, well, no, that wasn't abuse. Well, no, we're going to tell you it was. See, so then where does
Yeah.
that legal challenge come to all
Okay.
abuse, any abuse? Because just public indoctrination could be mental abuse upon children if they're not being honest with them.
Absolutely agreed. I mean, I'm talking any and all child abuse, whether that be from an SA point of view through to emotional abuse, physical abuse. I can't say bad parenting, because that's not part and parcel of abuse, although it can lead to it. You with me? But if the minimum sentence was life imprisonment, these people who have kids who don't really want kids, and they then become more susceptible to abuse as a result.
Okay.
Right?
So
That
if
would
that's
stop
the
it.
argument, okay, wait. So if that's the argument, that's not really going to stop it, because you got to go back to the core of it. If the people who really don't want children would get that abortion, right?
No,
Because they
I
don't
was,
really want children, but
I
if
was
they're
using that.
forced,
I was using that as an example.
right? But this is
Okay,
all I'm
because
saying is that
not everywhere in the States is it legal now for abortions.
so if they force parents to have children that don't even know how to care for children or do whatever, and then they make a mistake and they were forced to do it, yet then they get life for something they were forced into. All of this goes deeper than just because, like, who's going to claim
Yeah,
where the abuse is? Because the
right,
abuse is forcing people to have children that never wanted to have children.
right. So
To a
what I'm
certain
saying,
extent.
yes. However, you've got to have the support mechanism in place to support parents in that situation, right? I'm talking about, abuse situations. You can have a child who is treated, if you like Harry Potter, living in a broom cupboard, right, under the stairs, for argument's sake. I mean, that's taking it, to an extreme, but some parents mistreat their children. I'm not talking about chastising children, right? I'm not talking about where it's currently legal to give a kid a clip round the ear, for instance, right, for being naughty. I'm talking about physical abuse, mental abuse, ongoing, right? And of course, the sexual abuse, which can happen to children, right? The starting point for me is where Impact Media's gone to, which is for anybody who sexually abuses minors, on the first offence, they should be put behind bars for life. So that is a step in the right direction. If that ever got through and became federal law, right, and that was the standard for anybody who sexually abuses a child, and that would be the minimum term. So whatever state out of 50, yeah, if that's your first offence, you'll never do it again, because you'll be behind bars for life. Right?
So,
and it's about the deterrent to stop it.
Right, man, because there comes the ministry of truth, right? Because who's going to claim sexual assault? Because, I mean, it could come down to, I mean, it's really gotten to the point where in some places, if you have an online doctor and you send a picture of your child because they have a rash, and you send that picture to your doctor so that they can, that there'll be places that will flag that, and the police will be at your door because they're claiming you're sending something that's has to do with the child across the internet, and people have to answer for that. So this is like a really slippery slope that whatever they're doing over there, and the guy's going, we want to take it across the pond. We want to bring it out of here, and we want to take our fight over there across the water into America. It's like they might want to do that stuff there and find out how it's going to.
Well, that's what it's all about. That's what this is what the Impact Media's campaign is about America, right? And it's about federalizing the crime and the punishment.
And where's Impact Media from? Where are they located?
America.
Yeah. See, well, oops.
They were First Amendment auditors, right? And that developed then into something else. But then they hit on this idea of this campaign, Save a Child, and joined forces with another group that was doing it, and they brought out this petition, right? And they were getting signatures, written signatures at places, and now it's gone to an online petition, right? I'm not saying, what I'm saying is that there has to be a starting point to end child abuse.
There already has been.
Yeah, but
there
it's not
already
working.
Has been, and I don't agree that child abuse is good. So in any way, I'm not saying, I'm defending child abuse.
You're playing devil's advocate, Paulin.
Well, no, I'm actually claiming innocent advocate.
You're sorry, not claiming, playing, right? You're putting another viewpoint across, right? I'm not saying that you agree with what you're saying. You are just putting another viewpoint across, right?
Right.
Not many people
the argument instead of
that's right. You're looking at what is being proposed, and you're looking at what the solution of that proposal is, and you're putting a different viewpoint on, right? What I see this is as a deterrent, right? The ultimate deterrent. You mess around with a child, you go to prison if found guilty for life, even if it's your first offense. Now, that's what the proposal is, right? Now, the guys at Impact Media, the big guy who's there, right, who ran Impact Media, he was a victim of child abuse. So he's talking from his own experience, right? And he's quite open about this, right? And I believed what he thinks, to be honest. If this had been put in place 30, 40, 50 years ago, or whenever, right, with any country, let's say, right, then the only people who would probably abuse a child in this way would be someone who really deserves to be inside for the rest of their life, because they are not safe to be out with the public. They would be a
Right. So,
danger to children and to any and everybody else.
right, because that's how we should run society is based on fear. We should run societies based on fear. It's like be afraid of everything so that we can control every move you make and
I'm
make
not.
you
I'm not.
afraid of
I'm not.
doing
I
anything.
am. Yeah, but I'm only talking about this one aspect, right?
But that one
I
aspect leads
this.
into other aspects. It's no,
Well,
wait,
tell you
Brent.
what. All right, then I'll put another way to you. How would you think that we could reduce totally by hundreds of thousands of kids who are abused per year? How can we reduce that? There isn't a deterrent.
Okay, the first thing, if anybody's been watching the news lately about those files and everything that came out, that people would start understanding that if you go to the higher ups to get something that has to do with abuse, it's never going to happen because they never put themselves in jail. Nobody ever
Mhm.
goes to jail, but everybody goes to the upper people that are in power to put it into this. So all they'll be doing, all of the upper power people will be attacking people who really hasn't done anything so that they can claim they're doing something when they're the people that are doing it. It's like
But what about
if
the
people
victims?
don't understand, if people don't understand that if they can't stop it at the higher echelon of the people that make the laws and do the things, then all they're doing is attacking their fellow man next door who may have not done anything wrong, but they so much want somebody punished for it that they'll punish somebody who for life that may
Yeah.
have just did something that somebody else thinks is something, why there's all these people that are actually doing it. Because how does that
Well,
petition that they're setting up stop
let
everything that's been coming out?
what you've done, Fallen, is you've opened up, right, into other areas, which is, I mean, I don't agree with living in fear, right? What I do agree with is if you break the law, if you hurt a child in that way, that child in particular has to live with that for the rest of their lives. Their
Absolutely.
par- their
And so does the adult because I've had my own daughter. I've had my own daughter come back and from her friends go, hey, there comes a moment in my life when I dislike my parents. There comes a moment in my life, Dad, that there's
Mhm.
times that I want to dislike you and I'll say things to my friends so that we can be in our little group and disliking our parents and saying things. And it's just like, that's from my own child being honest with me, right? Coming back and us having a discussion
Okay.
on,
No, yeah, but when I'm talking, but okay, so a child's version of abuse is not necessarily the same as what the law says it is, because a lot of that is emotional feelings, right? Like, I don't want to be grounded, Dad, right? I didn't do that. I don't deserve this punishment. But you're bringing your daughter up, right, so that she is able to live within the law, right, and have a great life. There's no issues with that whatsoever, right? And kids are kids, and they do make accusations at times. However, that's when if you've got an ultimate deterrent, right, of life imprisonment, I would expect there to be a full investigation of the facts and the facts put before the court. If that person who is being accused of tampering, right, in any way, shape, or form with a child, if it's proven, then as a result of it being proven, they are then found guilty, then the minimum sentence should be life imprisonment, right?
yeah,
However,
right.
right, if it's
However,
if it's the child just making silly accusations, right, for no reason other than to get back at their parents or to get back at Uncle Fred or whatever, you with me, right?
Yes.
that would show up in the investigation.
Oh, you would
9
hope it
times
would,
out of
right?
10, it does, right?
Well,
However, there may
I
be
tell
the
you that
odd occasion, there may be an odd occasion when something is missed, right?
right.
There's always going to be, I mean, 30, 40 years ago, you didn't have DNA testing the way that we have now and the accuracy of it, right? So,
Absolutely.
and we didn't have the support there for people coming forward with due to historic crimes, right, committed
Right.
against them when they were young. We've now got a lot of that support is in place, right? So all I'm saying is, if you've got somebody who is convicted, right, and they are being found guilty, instead of the judge turning around and saying, well, I think we should give 5 years, and then another judge turns around and says, well, let's give them 10 years, right, for the same crime in a different area or in a different court, there is no consistency. But if you have the minimum term, right, as life imprisonment, these people who actually go out of their way to groom and track and mess with these kids, right?
Everybody in the public education system is grooming children, just straight up. Everybody that is taking your child is grooming them to do either working in a factory, working whatever, but in some way.
But that's
even parents in some way see that word. When people bring up these words and they try to put these contexts on them that they claim a certain thing, then if people don't realize every aspect of a child's life into a certain extent, I mean, honestly, parents are grooming their children and trying to lift them up and raise them in a way that they could be respectful, honorable, a person of their word. So that's actually grooming also. So
yes,
I mean,
yes, I'm talking about sexual grooming. I'm not talking about the system. I'm talking about individuals who are sick in their head, and there's no cure for them because they find children attractive. They find minors attractive.
So these people you just said are actually sick. They're sick individuals.
I said they're sick in the head, as in
what makes them sick is a mental sickness.
Yeah, but you can't cure it. There is no cure.
That's what you're saying. You're saying there's no cure.
Yeah, there isn't a cure. There isn't a cure. Doesn't matter. If any of these, more people, they go in, they do their sentence, they come out, and all of a sudden, because they've done their sentence, and they've stayed clean for 15 years or whatever, or they've not been caught for 15 years, right?
Yeah.
Then they become an upstanding citizen. What I'm saying is to prevent the child grooming, to prevent the harm which that does to the child, right? And in the same way, if it's a relative, it's still the same. I'm not just talking about strangers, right? Because we all teach our children about stranger danger, not to talk to strangers from a very young age. That's a form of grooming.
And then we take them out on Halloween and introduce them to a bunch of strangers that give them candy. It's all hypocritical.
That is. I mean, I can see where you're coming with that, but usually they go out with an adult of the family. Usually the mum or the dad takes them out.
Right, and that
they're
adult
standing
would tell
close.
them stranger danger, and then that adult is taking them to strangers to get candy. It's hypocritical. This is the whole thing
but that's a tradition, and it's designed not to groom. That is designed for kids to take part in a spooky experience and the meaning of Halloween.
Experience. Go to strangers and get candy. You got that right. That's a serious spooky experience. Take your child out.
But,
See, this is
but then dressing up children in outfits is all part and parcel of it, right? But dressing up children to sensationalize themselves is also wrong, and that is a form of abuse, in my opinion. But that's just my opinion, right?
right. And I want to say this, that in some way I don't endorse my opinion either. I'm just trying to argue the argument, right?
This is why
I
I like.
don't agree.
We do
I don't
have.
agree on children being harmed. I do not.
No, I get that, and I know what you're saying, and I know that you're coming from another point of view, and you're trying to rationalize the alternative, shall we say, right? And I
Right,
get
because every crime isn't the same. I mean, even if you ran a red light, it's not the same as you willfully reckless driving and killing some people. It's the same way as in this. That I would argue the fact of that in impact media doing their thing is them themselves in some way exploiting children for their I almost want to I don't want to say glorification, but for their benefit. That by them
there's no benefit in it. That's why they're not on YouTube. All they're using is their old platform to publicize it. They haven't done a video, it's just in a post.
Because I'm really like, I don't know how to do it, but really put the microscope on people who claim that they're trying to help children, but then if they don't realize themselves and what they're doing, if they don't pay attention, they're actually exploiting children themselves.
I'm going to ask you a question, right?
Okay.
Around this, right?
All right.
This petition, right, which Impact Media are doing in conjunction with Save a Child, right, to publicize it, to get people to sign. How is that exploiting children for their own gain when they're not getting?
Okay, so when you first said they were First Amendment audits, they were doing something
originally
else. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. All I'm saying is this is my opinion.
Away. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
My opinion is that if they change up, it's like they were originally doing this, and then somewhere in their mind they went, hey, we can start using children and use them to do this instead. That if they don't recognize somewhere, this is my opinion.
Yes, but that is not what happened. And what I would strongly advise that you do is you go over to Impact Media and read their posts. Right.
I went over there. You have it pinned.
I've got it pinned.
So that was the first thing that I did, is I pressed that and went to their channel.
Yeah. But no way are they using children for their own gain.
Well, no, that's okay. So let's just say that even in the ideology, right? Let's say that there's a lot of people that do that, right? They'll go out and they'll pretend that they're underage people on the internet. And to me, in some aspect, this is my own opinion, and I'm not claiming that harming children is good or predatorizing on children is good. That's one of the reasons why I'm so in some way hard in myself, that when people are using children for their purpose or claiming, oh, we're going to use children to get our purpose across, that in some way they themselves, I'll look at them and see if they're not exploiting children, if they're not the ones that are actually exploiting them. It's like people getting on the internet and claiming they're 15 and they're really 30.
Just give me a couple of minutes. I've got something I want to do before BBA comes into this. Just want to say hi to Dinosaur and DP Audits. Thanks for dropping in, even if he is calling me an old git. Right, okay. Let's BBA.
I'll be honest. I've only just come in. I got told you were live. I've jumped straight in. I haven't heard the conversation. I've literally just heard since I've been on. However, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm assuming what you're talking about is predator hunters.
Well, that's what I was about to come into. Yeah, the polling. Yeah. That's what you were referring to.
So you're talking about what, I don't know if it's a different terminology over there, but here we call them predator hunters.
Okay, so absolutely. So you using that term predator hunters, that in some way, I think that in the way that people project is that you're absolutely right. And those people are actually the predators, and they're on the hunt for something they want and what they'll try to trick people into doing or whatever. So you're absolutely right. I do believe that it's honestly in some way
No. I'm
called
saying that's
predator
what we're
hunter.
talking about. Sorry, Fallen. No, I haven't actually gave an opinion yet. I'm just saying that's what
Okay.
we're talking about, yeah? Because
Okay.
I've
That's
come
what we
in late.
moved on to. Yeah,
Right.
That's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's
My
what you have an issue with.
misunderstanding. I apologize.
No,
I
that's fine.
apologize. You're
But
absolutely
so
right.
I'm just trying to get an understanding for what it is that the point you're trying to get put across. So correct me if I'm wrong, but you have an issue with predator hunters. You have an issue with them, yeah?
No, BBA. Where this stemmed from was Impact Media, who were First Amendment auditors over in the States.
Right.
They stopped doing First Amendment. They didn't close their channel down. They left it open with no copyright on any of their stuff, right? However, they have moved on to a different sort of campaign, and it's to do really with petitioning the government in this case. So it's still First Amendment over in the States, but it's not the traditional. This is about petitioning, and they're working with Save a Child. And the idea, what they're petitioning is that anybody who commits any essay against children in any way, shape or form, if it's their first offence, they should get life imprisonment, and it should be federalized. So it goes across all 50 states to stop the indiscriminate and non-consecutive, shall we say, this stupid sentencing. So basically, as a deterrent, even if it's your first offence or first time you are convicted, right, it's life imprisonment, right? Which means
that would never happen. That would never happen purely just because the people who steer the ship, if you like, they're all of that nature themselves. So for them to tighten up laws doesn't benefit them.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from, and Fallen's already pointed that out. But what I'm saying is this, from my perspective, right? I agree with that, but I don't think it goes far enough. But at least it's a start, and it's about a deterrent.
Well, I wanted to just pick up on.
Let me answer your question real quick.
Hang on, let's get back to what Bear was saying, Fallen, because
I just really want to answer, like, because I know we won't come back to it otherwise. Fallen, you sound like you have an issue with people because I know you're on about a particular channel, but it sounds like on a whole you've just said it. They're the predators, right? So you have an issue for some reason with people that are out trying to catch pedophiles.
No, see, that's wrong. I don't have an issue with people who are in some way trying to catch pedophiles, because I even had to Google it up and see if pedophile was actually a criminal word. Like if that's what the person got called after they've been found convicted or guilty of whatever. Like, where do these words come from? Like, what's the etymology behind these words, and why do people use them so loosely when they're communicating? Because if people actually, I think if they actually cared, and if they cared about children, they would be really precise, especially when they want somebody put in life. Right? So they would consider how they're using words, so that even if people wanted a conviction of somebody doing a minimal thing, as in the same punishment for somebody who did the most horrific thing, that they would get the same punishment as somebody who did the most horrific thing that you could ever do, that there's something wrong right there with that person's thinking. that they would want somebody who's done the most minimal, especially if they're coming from a 1A auditor claiming we want our rights, and then
Well,
they
I
would come
think
out.
if
I would claim,
what are we talking about being the minimal offence here? What are we
well,
referring
Grim
to?
said anything. Grim said that they're saying, well, Grim isn't talking for himself. I think he was talking
Any,
for the other people. That
any,
anything,
any sexual,
anything.
hang on, any sexual crime against a minor.
Yeah,
So
I agree with that. That's not a minor offence. That's not a minor offence.
That's what
It is a minor offence. It's even called a minor.
No, it's not.
No,
You can't tell me.
No,
Hang on.
listen.
So you're telling me what you're trying to say then is a paedophile. If a paedophile only does it once, it's okay because it's only a minor thing.
No. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I said. I'm using the words that people are using to try to get an understanding of the complexity of the situation they're trying to put all of society in, because they're asking for they're asking for laws, they're asking for, we need to put this on every person in this society, and then to claim that that's a fear-based thing. It's like, that's a minor offense if they're called minors. That's all that I'm saying. I'm not claiming that.
That doesn't. No,
hang on, BBA, please let me just explain something.
Please.
The Fallen is putting an alternative point of view across, not necessarily the point of view that he agrees with.
No, but he's saying that it's a minor offence.
But no. He's saying, right, okay. I'm talking about what Fallen is trying to do. He's trying to play devil's advocate, right? Unfortunately, when he reads information, he's seeing minor and he thinks it's a minor offence. It's a first offence. And we're not talking about other laws where something is a minor offence. A traffic violation is a minor offence. An offence against a child who is a minor is not a minor offence. It's a major offence and should be treated in the most fearful way possible to make sure it stops, it's eradicated. So it's like if you turn around, I mean, I don't think it goes far enough, as I said right at the beginning. I think it's a start. If it ever got passed, it's a start, right? But personally, I wouldn't even put them in jail. Right, it's cheaper to buy a 9mm.
A wood chipper, right?
Yeah, put them through a wood chipper, bro. That's exactly what I'd do. Put them through a wood chipper from the feet first. Feet first.
I'm saying this.
Hang on a minute. If I said, hey, okay, that's cool, but what it really shows into some extent, right, in a psychological thing of people's minds and a sickness of the mind, if I said somebody wanting to put a person in a wood chipper, head or feet first, to dismangle a person and claim I get to use a child to do that, is actually exploiting children in their mind.
No.
See, but I'm just saying, that's just an opinion of going.
Yeah. No, that's fine. Doesn't necessarily mean it's your opinion, I know. Yeah. UKT and El Perro, hi. AGM, hi. Thanks for dropping in. We're having a philosophical discussion around the minimum sentence that should be given, and we're using America as at the moment because of this, what Impact Media are doing, which is petitioning for first offence sexual offences against a child to be a minimum of life imprisonment. That's where it's all come from, right? And Fallen, who is not necessarily giving his personal views, right? He is putting across the devil's advocate, if you like, and I'm all for it.
Almost a psychological, right? Because it's just like that, because I don't agree. I mean, I could sit here and honestly say, throw them in a wood chipper, because I disagree with abuse of children, so much so that I have my own children, and I have to be really careful in just myself and how every day when you come home from work and it goes bad, that you really, when you come through that front door, you have to understand within yourself that these people don't deserve, even your wife doesn't deserve what you went through if you can't communicate in a hospitable, I guess, way with other people.
Big up
Because
the
in
chat.
some way that can be considered abuse, right? If you take your feelings out and you start, you gotta, it's almost like that. If you can't govern yourself, because I think that's what a lot of this is going, these people are sick in the head, right? They're mentally sick, so they can't govern themselves. So we must, as a society, govern them for them. So we're going to put in place then what we claim this sick person actually needs, such as a wood chipper. That person's sick. They're sick. They can't help it. They're sick.
Yeah.
We have to find
No, they
in
can't help
some
it.
way.
They can't help it. They're not sick, bro. They can't help it. We
That's
can't.
But
We
the
can't.
thing is,
That sounds like an excuse for them if we say they're sick.
yeah, but
They're
no,
sick.
what this came about? This came about because I said basically they're sick in the head, and he took it as being literal, right?
I mean, yeah,
There
all right,
is
they're sick in the
there's
head,
no
but
flaw.
he
if
needs
you're
to be
coughing and
careful. He needs to be
sneezing,
careful with wording when talking about this discussion because already
right?
twice now and I'm not trying to pick at him because I don't think obviously he's saying that at all. By the way, I want to clear this up. I don't think he's saying it, but the way he's wording things, he's making it sound like he's like saying a minor on a minor offense is a minor offense. That don't sound good, bro. Do you know what I mean? I'm trying
Yeah,
to,
no, yeah,
I
and
get
pick
it. I
your
was
words.
just using the word. You're right. And in some way,
Yeah, it
it's the
comes
same
across
way as
wrong.
the First Amendment audits. If they're claiming I have the right to speak, and if somebody wants to put on my words something that I don't mean because in their head they want to use something against me, then I would claim to them again that's psychologically against them because
No, it's
they're
not.
really
It's not. When,
protecting themselves.
sir,
They're- Because if
it's
you
really not.
cough, no,
hang
if
on,
you
hang on.
Really.
cough, if you cough
It's
on
it,
somebody and you sneeze on them,
no.
let me
I
finish.
understand.
If,
Hang on. I understand what you're saying to a degree, but you literally said a minute ago, right? And this is what I'm saying. Just pick your word in. You said a sexual offence on a minor is a minor
but
offence.
I said
Yeah.
that was
So it
only
makes it
because of the
sound like you're
word.
saying
No,
it's
listen.
only.
No, well,
So,
listen. Listen
if someone hears
carefully.
that, you can't then flip that on them because they've sat there and heard those words
No,
and thought, "Hang on a minute."
I said it's only because of the word, because of the verbiage. That's why I said people have to be careful of their verbiage. It's like you telling me, you need to be careful of your verbiage. And I said that goes across the board because when
Yes,
people
I
talk
see.
this
Yeah,
way, these words mean these things. That's all
hang on.
that
Okay,
I'm
so let me
saying.
give you,
All
for
right.
example, and I'm not saying everyone does it right, but you know these predator hunters, and it's why I wanted to kind of give you
I'm
my
glad you
take
got
on it.
back to that.
So I get what you said before about people doing it for their own gain. So if somebody's out, for instance, claiming to be after protecting children and catching all these people, but they're somehow making a living off of it, even, yeah. Again, I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that. Let's just appreciate the fact that someone is doing something about it. And two, I'm not saying everyone, but for the most part, the people that go out and do this kind of stuff make sure they have it bang on before using words like paedophile, etc. Because as you said, they are used very loosely these days. And obviously, by doing that, it kind of dilutes the meaning of a word when it's kind of used out of context far too many times. Correct?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. So but what I'm saying is, a lot of these predator hunters, although you might see some of them and think, oh, they're kind of making a monetary gain off of what they're doing, it wouldn't necessarily mean they're only doing it because of that reason. Like, you got to remember, all of these things cost a lot of money, bro. Like, they do. Like, all the traveling and stuff. If someone is making some money off the back of doing good, let's just praise somebody or let's encourage somebody to do good. Let's not look at you're making money off of that.
Who
So
calls
what?
that good? I mean, I'm just asking the question because here we go again. You're going to question me on
Yeah, it's
what
good.
do I mean
No,
by
it's
using
good.
the word good. But what is that when you claiming that's doing good is trapping people and finding within
No,
somebody
no, it
some
isn't. Yeah,
mental
no, it's not trapping
disability?
somebody, right? Because no, bro. I hear what you're saying. All right, so I could be what they call a decoy. Again, imagine it's the same thing over there.
Then
So
you
you have
can't go into
decoys.
any
Hang
court
on,
claiming you
bro.
were underage and that person was after an
Yes,
underage
you can.
person because you're
You
not
can. You
underage.
can. You can. You can. No,
See,
you
I
can.
know.
They believed that the person that they was talking to online was of that age. They can.
That's a thought
Convictions here
crime.
happen all the time, right?
That's a thought
Convictions.
crime.
It's not a thought crime. It's not a
Yeah,
thought
you
crime.
just
Not
said
when
they
people are. It's
believed. They
grooming.
thought they were
You can
believing
groom.
something that wasn't real.
So do you
Is
think?
a thought
Do you
crime.
think? Do you think that an adult can have a conversation on the internet with a child, yeah, and they can say certain things that they're thinking, their thoughts, and because it's just thoughts, it's no crime? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Wow. See, that's a tricky question you just asked me. That's a
A very
really
good
tricky
question.
question because I
It
can
shouldn't
say
be.
yes and no. No, I can say yes and no. Both of them, but that doesn't make me a bad person whether I choose yes or no because I can argue both sides of it because I go, yes, it is. Because I would say that those people are grooming that person to bring forth something in them they would never brought forth without that grooming that that predator did to them. In that same aspect, I could say no because it's like, well, they're doing the ultimate good and they're really cleaning the internet from
There's a good
bad
question,
people.
Paulin.
Yeah.
A couple of things which are coming in from the chat. One is I had to ask you to allow other people to talk and not to talk
Oh,
over.
my bad. Okay.
And secondly,
I guess I
UKT.
took the arguing part too far.
Yeah, no.
I'm sorry,
Hang
Graham.
on.
It's a good debate. It's a good conversation. It's a good debate.
Yeah,
Let's
I'm
listen to
not
one another.
criticizing. I'm just
Okay.
saying what the people in the chat are trying to listen to all sides. Okay, and they can't do that
Okay.
when you've got people talking over each other. That's all.
I
Now,
apologize.
UK Transparency is asking a very good question. How can you trick a normal adult into speaking sexually to an adult? Right. So, in other words,
Is that for me?
right, yeah. Well, in general, right. It's not for you in particular. It's in general, right. My understanding, right, is if you have no urges towards children, you would not answer to anything where a child or someone pertaining to be a child on the internet, right, is trying to trap you. They're not, right?
Okay. What if I said this?
Hang on a second. You as an individual wouldn't answer anything online in regards to a child. You wouldn't do anything to a child in that way. But there are people out there who do, and they get away with it constantly. These predator hunters, right? They're not looking for normal people. They're looking for these who are, and I use this phrase again, right? Because I can't think of one which actually fits, that are sick in the head that find children attractive. Right? And they're trying to put them behind bars to protect children. So they're acting as decoys, right? It's better them acting as decoys than a child. However,
and you do know that a decoy a lot of the time, again, it does sometimes happen, has been known to happen, but a lot of the time, because it makes the case a lot tighter, yeah, is these decoys actually just make accounts. That's it. Accounts where they find children that are willing to use their faces, or parents that are willing to let the child's face be used as a decoy. Plus AI can be used these days, which kind of helps and still tricks people.
In a lot of areas, they are backed by the police.
But they're accounts, right? They're accounts that these men go and reach out to. So me and you, yeah, we ain't gonna go and be looking through social media, finding some young girl, yeah, that we find pretty, because again, we're not like that, yeah. And then go and message them. Once that decoy gets a message from they'll go check that account out. If that account's an adult male, they will then reply. And yes, they will, but they'll turn around and say at some point, they'll ask the child, how old are you? or if they don't, they'll turn around and say, "Oh, I'm only 14. I'm quite nervous," or something like this. Yeah, and these people will be like, "Yeah, that's okay. Just don't tell anyone." And then, like I say, this is just all like you say, the thought process, but it's not. It's, at that point, it's grooming, bro. Grooming children. You can't. That's a criminal
They're
offence. You can't be
grooming.
doing that
They're
shit, bro.
also
And then,
right,
hang on.
but they're
It can get
also
Hang
worse.
on, hang on,
They start sending explicit photos. Yeah, they start sending them, like,
yikes.
masturbating and stuff. Right.
Mm.
This. They're not catching people like me and you, because me and you ain't going to put ourselves in a position where, so they're not tricking anybody. What they're doing is, if it wasn't a decoy account, it could potentially have been a real child. And through the messages, you can clearly see that the adult is willing to groom the child into saying things like, "Oh, don't worry, don't keep it, it'll be our little secret," etc., etc. The fact that this adult believes that child is of that age, that is a criminal offence, my friend, and we should be looking to
Right.
take those type of
Right.
people off the streets. Because
Okay,
you
so
said
if
you
I
have children. I don't know how old your
if I
children
said
are,
I
but I
agree
have
with
young
you, no,
children.
wait,
I
BBA,
have young
is this
children,
you?
and I
'Cause
want those people off the street, bro. All of them.
right, hang on.
Okay, so if I said I
Fallen,
agree, but
yeah,
when he first came in, right? Now I could agree all I want with him, but it's the same thing that I would also agree with him when he first came in. If you're petitioning anybody in a higher power to start putting down things that are that way themselves, if the people don't realize what they're doing, they're actually going to end up harming more people than they are going to help them. Because when he
No,
came in
not
and
true.
said, if you put a petition to the people in charge who are involved in all that kind of stuff, where do you think that's actually going to help your fellow man or your fellow child or your fellow minor? Where do you think
How's it
that's
not?
actually going to affect them? That's my point. So it comes down to you and me. You're absolutely right. I wouldn't get trapped in that because I'd start calling them out I don't get in those chats anyway, but if I did, I'd start calling them out as feds. You know what I mean? You're not a 13-year-old, you're a fed. And I would start calling them out because that's what you're actually going to find in those chats are people they're predators. They're searching for people that they can hook up and they could do this stuff too and trying to make some claim that now your first time offense somewhere inside your psyche or something, because there could be help for these. They say there's no help for anybody,
There's no
but we
help,
could say
bro.
that about
There's no help.
anyone.
Listen, there's three men
before,
on the panel, yeah?
can I,
There's three
can I,
adult men on the panel.
Bear,
I don't believe one of us are going to agree with that shit.
Bear, can I just take the floor a second, please, guys? I just want to clarify a few points because there's a few people who've come in who may not be up to date with what actually had the way we started. Okay, so Impact Media, who were, and I state this, were First Amendment auditors who went out filming in public places, etc., right, have stopped doing that. They have moved on to another part of the First Amendment, which is to petition their government. And what they're doing with Save a Child is a petition to the government to federalize the minimum term of anybody caught and prosecuted successfully, whether it's their first offence or not, because 9 times out of 10, the first offence is only when they've been caught, right? That they get a minimum sentence of life imprisonment. In other words, they remove the crap off the streets, right? And they protect the children, right? And I put the link in and pinned it for people to go and have a look at the post, right? And if you so wish to sign and you live in America and you want to back them, you can sign the petition. That's entirely up to you. I'm not saying you should or you shouldn't, right? My viewpoint is that there is no help for these people, whether it be male or female, these predators on children, right? They should be off the streets. The first step of doing that is this petition, right? The chances of it getting through let's face it, unfortunately, because of the way the governments work, right, and especially over in the States, right, it's highly unlikely it'll happen. But there's nothing wrong in petitioning, because you never know, someone might listen. And that's where we came from. And we've developed this now into different types of whether or not predator hunters are should be doing what they're doing. Is there a book to be made in this by supporting it, etc., etc. The reason why Impact Media moved away from YouTube was so that they could start afresh with this new idea. Right, and I think it's fantastic personally, right? And I think that the work that they're doing behind the scenes, they're not publicizing what they've done. All they have is put a post on their old channel explaining why they're doing it, right? And also put the petition up. Now, having had a number of conversations, I want to get this channel back to debates and to have live chats and away from the music. However, I started off with a song which I made for this particular event, right? And it's a one-off, right? It'll go on the other channel of mine, right? Which is Grim Reaper music channel. People want music, go. I'll provide it, and then go over there. There's a lot of stuff there to support people and mental health, etc. That's what that is all about. But all I'm trying to say is, I open this up as an open discussion, right? The Fallen I've known for some time, and he does not necessarily put across his own views. He puts across questions, and my understanding is that he conceives this as, if it ever got through, as being a downward slope for other crimes. But I'm not talking about other crimes. I'm talking about.
Thank you, Grim, for saying that. Thank you. I appreciate you, Grim.
So please don't take it that he believes he's just putting another viewpoint across. Right, and he sees. There are people out there, child predator hunters, who do use YouTube and do want to make money off it and make a profit. Unfortunately, that is the case, and it does happen every now and again. But
it does. It happens most of the time. In the end, once you end up doing well, that is exactly what ends up happening. But what I'm saying is, why? Why is it every time he does something, like everyone always sees somebody doing something? It's okay. Cool. Look what they're doing. That's fantastic. And then they hear they're making money from doing it, and it's like, oh, grifters. And that kind of bugs me, because, like, how would you expect people to just, like, even like the auditing, yeah? The auditing ain't cheap, man. Like, by the time I go out for a day, it's no different from working and being self-employed. If I have to go out for the day, I've got all those expenses and that, like I don't think you quite get it, bro.
No, what bugs me, let me say what bugs me, is that it's been proven that women can sit at a swimming pool and they can take pictures all day long of their children and whatnot. But a dude gets a camera and starts taking pictures, and the freaking world comes against that guy. And they don't care whether or not he has a child right there and he's taking pictures of his children and his children's friends. They jump all over that dude, and that dude hasn't done anything wrong. He hasn't done anything different than anybody else has done. So in that aspect of when these things are going forward, if we just take a straight line and go, everybody who we make this claim against gets life. We don't care if a bunch of people claim that they're guilty. We don't care. We don't care what the real thing is. It's just that these people said, get them, so we're going to wood chip them up.
Hang on a second, Fallen. Like I said originally, if someone was to make a claim, report it, and it goes to the police, they would need to do an investigation. If they're just taking pictures of their own children, and there's other children in the background, there's nothing wrong with that.
People
Guess
should
what?
look up
Been
the
doing it for
read.
years at Disneyland, and no one's ever questioned it.
Right, but people should look up the read thing,
Yeah, right.
what the police uses the read effect to get people to do things that, I mean, because even in that, and asking those things for those federal or those people in authority, that people need to like follow through. Look up the read, what the police use in the read effect, and to get confessions from people that are innocent. They get people to confess that they've killed somebody that's still alive. This thing that they do and how that they do these things to people, if they're not aware of all of these things and that's set in place, and they start putting forth petitions to petition that, to then start doing other things, if they're not educated themselves, they got to be
Well,
real careful, because that's why I say they're just
yeah,
exploiting children
but
themselves.
as I said to you, the guy who was in charge of Impact Media, when he was younger, he was abused. He's doing this from his own point of view. That the fact is, if this had been put in place beforehand as a deterrent, maybe, because maybe he wouldn't have been abused. Right? He's a
Maybe,
survivor.
but what if
There
I
are a
said,
lot of child survivors out there, right? But I'm
absolutely, what if I said
what
I
I'm
survived that? If I
yeah,
survived that, people would go, how could you even come close to having the thoughts that you have? And me being a survivor of it myself, I escaped a garage, right? Of a
yeah,
person. I mean, I've been there myself. So in
mhm,
me having these thoughts, see, I can already go that somebody could claim, well, it's Stockholm syndrome. You know how you want to protect your abuser and how you want to do this stuff, and knowing that that's all psychological. But what
yeah.
we're asking, and what they're asking, is a entity, a tyrannic authoritarian entity, to start imposing this aspect upon society of claiming we want this to happen to
Okay.
anybody you
I,
claim.
may I suggest something that you contact Impact Media, right, or you leave a message on the post, right, asking how many signatures they got and how many do they need before questioning what it is that they're doing, because let's face it, America's a big place, right, and to get
Yes.
enough signatures to raise that to at federal level, right, in other words, to the government, right? In order for that to be raised, they've got to get senators, governors, and everybody else on board, right? To put that through. You've got to have that support. You've got to use the system to get it through. So you've got to get lobbyists involved some way, right? Because it's not
Yeah.
going to happen. But all I'm saying is they are using their First Amendment to petition to the government, and there's nothing wrong with that,
You're
right?
absolutely right.
It's a start, right? And I'm saying as a deterrent, right, it would potentially stop a lot of children from being abused, and that's all I'm saying. As a
I
deterrent,
get your point. I find nothing wrong with your position on this, Grim. I don't find anything wrong with BBA's thing. All I do is, like I'm saying too, when people start talking, because I've been there, when people
yeah.
start talking about helping children in their plight, my first and foremost thing is, I'm on the caution to make sure they're themselves not exploiting children and trying to claim
Mhm.
how good and mighty they are, when they're just really basically exploiting children and using children to make themselves feel better about themselves. Does
But
that
I
make
don't think that's,
sense?
yeah, yes, but I don't think that's the situation here. However, I do see what your point is. No, but they're not. But they're not using how. Okay, I don't think that's the case. You know, so I can't see how the two go together. I'm sorry.
I mean, I'm just
People,
arguing the argument. I'm not
no,
finding fault
that's
in
okay.
anybody.
I don't think that's an argument, because I can't see the connection, right, between someone being abused, going through it, and coming out the other side as normal as possible of a human being, right, who doesn't have any tendencies, right, in any way, shape, or form, and actually wants to do something positive, right? I've not come across anybody being as positive about and doing something around this for a long time. I support the predator hunters and the work which they do, so long as they stay within the law, right? And as long as they work with the law, doesn't matter what country they're in, so long as they follow and do what they need to do. That's fine. There's no issue in there, and I don't think many people would disagree, right? You mentioned about exploiting children, right? Putting a different argument across, right?
Right.
As I said,
It's not
playing,
naturally that I'm disagreeing.
playing devil's
It's not
playing
naturally that
devil's
I'm
advocate.
disagreeing.
Yeah,
Well, I'm
you're
just
playing
putting
devil's
forth
advocate.
another. Right.
You're putting
I don't
through.
like the words devil's advocate, but I'm
Well,
putting forth
I use that
basically.
because it's not because you're putting across viewpoints or potential objections, shall we say?
Okay.
Right.
Right.
To it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Right? I'm not saying that this is. I've not said, and I won't say this is what you think personally or what you agree with. You're just putting on alternative viewpoints across. It's to move the discussion along, which is great, but I can't see the connection with that particular objection, right? Where there's a group of people, or one person in particular in this case, right? Because I know he's got two sons, and they're probably working on something similar or supporting him, right? I don't see how that makes them feel better, because there's no exploitation. They're trying to stop it from happening to others, and if somebody could come up with a better idea, I'd love to hear it, because maybe, just maybe, if this became big enough over in the States, that in itself is a starting point to start talking about this more openly.
Do you think there's a better idea than wood chipper feet first? I mean, because that's the idea: is put them all in the wood chipper head first.
Whoa. That was bear being bear, right?
Oh,
Hang
okay.
on. Okay, it's like me turning around and saying it's cheaper with a 9mm, right?
Right.
It's the
Absolutely less lead.
It's the same thing, right? Personally speaking, I don't think it goes far enough, this petition, but you've got to have a starting point, right? And this is a starting point, and I think it's a good starting point, which is the reason why I'm highlighting it. Right?
Maybe I'm projecting a little bit of myself in that compassion. It's because I'm a compassionate person. So maybe in some of this talk, it's like there's in some way compassion coming out, and people don't understand it because they're like, that person should never get any compassion. And it's like, but then fault me for being a compassionate person. Well, you throw me in the wood chipper now because I'm actually a compassionate person. Not that I've done any of that nasty stuff or that I believe that it should be done, but should I go in the wood chipper first? You know what I mean?
No, maybe second, but not first. Listen, there are always going to be compassionate people out there, right? For these particular crimes, whether it be male or female that's committing them, I have no compassion for at all. Zero. So this is why I personally don't think this goes far enough. However, because of the society we live in, right, we have to show compassion. So I think this is a good halfway. You with me? It's just the way I see things, and I see a lot of things black and white. I don't necessarily see the grey, right? And this is why when somebody comes up with an idea which suggests there's a grey area, I like to turn around or more likely to turn around and say, well, what's grey about it? They did the crime, they paid, they do the time. In this case, if it ever got through, it would be life imprisonment. But it's a good deterrent because you can't cure these people. Maybe the fear of going inside for life is enough to stop them from doing these things.
No.
Right? Maybe. You never know.
No.
But it's a start.
I spoke to paedophile hunters, yeah? And they say it's crazy. Like, for instance, when someone gets stung and then they're stinging someone like 6 months later, a year later, same person. And like, you would have thought by the time they've actually been caught that they wouldn't do it again. You think it would be enough of a deterrent, yeah? And he was like,
Absolutely.
mate, the problem is they're that desperate. They're that desperate. That's the problem. These people that are talking to kids, they're that desperate to find these kids and talk to them, groom them, meet them up. It's crazy, man.
Can I ask you a question, BBA? Now, if I said to you that everybody's talking about grooming children, so in that understanding that people groom children and they're groomed, and that is bad, and it's just deplorable that they did this to a child. When that child grows up and their actions and their mental capacity is based upon that grooming, and if we don't understand that and we don't consider that in any aspect in anything they've done, how are we not just as abusive to that person as those groomers were, that we would slam them and in some way not understand anything about anything other than there's no help for you. You're just the terriblest person on the planet.
Before you answer that there, AJM, I agree it's a disease, but they were able to cure smallpox, but they've not been able to cure this disease known as paedophilia. There is no cure. Well, there is, but we're not allowed to do that at the moment. So we have to, as a starting point, let's agree to disagree that life imprisonment would be a good deterrent from them getting that disease or acting upon that disease. Anyway, sorry about that, Bear. You were asking.
No, I'm saying, sorry. If somebody gets caught doing that, then we write them off as the worst people on the planet, mate. Yeah, that's exactly what we do.
I mean, because there's people that's been on there that said, oh, you want to bring up your childhood, and their childhood directly involves in what happened to them as a child, like what took place to them, what groomed them, what performed them, what causes them to have the way that they think. And if it got put in as a child, and what happened to them is then to hold them personally responsible for that because of the way they were groomed, and claim there's no help for you. You suck. You're the worst person on the planet. Wood chipper for you. What do you think you're really doing to that person themselves? Then if you don't consider that within yourself, you're just as abusive as the person that groomed them, because you're following right along in that storyline. And then what do they think about themselves? What do they do within themselves to try to accept what they've been through, what they thought about themselves, what's going on within them to claim that there's no way we could actually understand, because then you're limited in your own understanding. You're basically claiming you're a caveman. There's no way we could understand that. Wood chipper for you. You see, it's like there's a complex situation that's going on. It's complex, and everybody's making it like it's simple. Find them guilty of their first thing, life imprisonment, wood chipper. This is really simple. It's not that simple, people. It's not that simple. People try to take the simple thing out, but then they end up abusing their fellow man. Then
Okay.
they become the abuser, claiming they're doing it for righteousness, and they just actually became the abuser. And because they're such an abuser, they can't self-regulate. They can't self-analyze and go, did I just become an abuser? My mentality, becoming abusive? Or am I
So,
actually
so
an
would it be
upstanding?
okay
Okay.
to put an alternative across to your argument, right? On this, right? UKT has put it that as they claim themselves, it's sexuality. They can't choose your sexuality, so it will always be a danger to children, right? That's one way of putting it, right? Another one is basically, I disagree with the death penalty for one reason, and it's a technicality, because many years ago, when Great Britain had the death penalty, there was found that years later, afterwards, they had to withdraw the sentence, etc., and prove them innocent because of DNA, for argument's sake. Life imprisonment would also allow that. So if it caught up with them that they were found innocent due to a new science which has been developed to come out, it's been proven, etc., it makes it an unsafe conviction. As a result, then they would be right to get a retrial. And if it turned out that the new evidence which is put before the courts that proves that they were innocent, then they would need to be released, their name would need to be cleared, etc. And even compensation may need to be given to that person who was wrongly convicted, right? But what I'm
If it was
saying is,
ever found out they were wrongly convicted.
if
If.
it was never found out, right? If they were ever wrongly convicted, and this is
Because
also
does prison make it accessible, and does prison make it comfortable for a person that's innocent? That a person who's wrongly been convicted, does prison and that lifestyle make it
well,
acceptable for an innocent person?
yeah, but the law is the law, okay? And there may be quite a few people who are behind bars and it's an iffy conviction, right? For whatever reason. Or they believe that they're totally innocent. And there's a lot of these attacks or the grooming that goes on, right? These people who do it believe that they have a right to, because it's it could be seen as from their ancestors they got this right. They could make anything up, they could say anything. But all I'm trying to say is that this is as far as we could go from a humane point of view. Instead of putting them in the wood chipper or using a 9mm, right? 9mm would be cheaper than a wood chipper, but it's not all about saving costs, I suppose.
Really?
But the thing is, right, the majority are guilty. It's just that they've only just been caught. They could have been doing it for years, So this is how I see it. To me, it's black and white. There is no
I know
grey.
that is kind of a bummer, because there's always a gray. I mean, in some, I
Only
don't want
if
to say
somebody wants to make
always,
it
because
grey.
either you're speeding or you're not speeding. Either I was going 70 or I was going 50, I was
Yeah,
speeding, but the dependent is like, was I going 1 mile an hour over the speed limit, or was I going
but
100 miles an hour over the
there
speed limit?
again, it is down to the prosecution to prove their case. Right. And if the prosecution bring us all the up-to-date evidence that they've got with the up-to-date technologies, etc., right, and it's got a proven track record, and they put their case and the jury finds that person guilty, then the judge has no alternative, if this got passed, but to issue a life sentence.
Right. So if I said to you, right, if I just said this, right, that to me and to anybody else that goes, this is like horrific that people would do this. It's like we would have to understand, right? I think that within myself, this isn't kind of like an understanding within myself for somebody to have to do that after all the information that's out today on how people are tracking people, they'd have to be sick, right? Because who would fall for that trap if they were mentally capable of understanding what they're actually getting put into? Who in their right mind would not get that they're being put into this situation and they would be going, oh, hell no. You know what I mean? That they would actually, so in that aspect itself, it's that same kind of sickness. It's like there's something.
Okay. Is it a sickness of the mind? Would it be a sickness of the mind?
Absolutely.
Okay, so
something that happened to even if they got transformed that way as a child.
So
if they got transformed that way as a child.
All right, let's change the word prison, right, to a mental health institution. Right? Either way, they're still going to be institutionalized, right? And I'm not splitting hairs, right? If you're saying it is a mental issue, then they need to be treated by the mental health services.
I'm going to give you kudos right there, Grim, because see, the 9mm just changed. So I'm going to tell you, Grim, that now whether it means anything to you or not, but I actually respect you more now because I do honestly believe finally somebody's went, yes, it needs to be treated. It doesn't need to be in certain cases in prison. It's a treatment. It's a mental facility. They're put there.
Forward. Remember what I said earlier on the back of what AJM said, that it's a disease, and up to now, they've only been able to cure smallpox and eradicate smallpox from the planet. They've not been able to eradicate this particular sickness, which affects the mental health of someone that drives them to go and commit these crimes against minors. Right.
Okay. So I disagree. It's a mental thing.
They
should be committed to a mental institution.
Okay, but there is
and
still
hopefully the people there will understand because they'll get better. Because we know how
just
the First Amendment auditors getting put in jail, how they get treated in that aspect.
How can you rehabilitate, right, these sorts of people who, no matter what you did, what drugs you do, right, whether you if you castrate them and you put them back out into the public, they've still got arms and legs, they've still got hands, so they can still do it again in a different way. But instead of it being penetrative, right, in the normal way, because they can't get it, right, they're still going to do it. No, it's not maybe.
That's a maybe. You're absolutely right. Some of them might.
It's a 99%.
Some of them might do it. That's why I'm saying that. It's like
I would say 90% of the people convicted would do it.
I'm gonna have to look that up, but I'm gonna agree with you that even if it's 90%, 10% of the people, 10% of the people then would be getting treated like they shouldn't be treated because of 90% of the people. It's like we still have to have some kind of understanding about the 10% of those people. We have to, because if we don't understand that, how are we any different than gas chamber and people that are of different?
AJM is asking you a direct question, Paulin, right? How could you fix such a broken mind that they won't? If they are released, you can convert that to a 90% not reconvicting, right? But then you still got that 10%. But we'll deal with that one separately, right? But is there such a thing as a treatment? Can you rehabilitate these moronic people, right? Who find that children are attractive because their mind tells them. My mind tells me that my wife is the most beautiful thing in the world, right? You might look at her, or somebody else, BBA might look at her and go, actually, not in my opinion, but it's a matter of opinion, right? That's a matter of opinion. This isn't opinion. This is the fact that they think, they normalize it, they make excuses, they do everything they can do, right? How can you fix that? You can't.
It's not about fixing it. It's about, first and foremost, it's about understanding it, right? Because without understanding, you could never fix anything. I mean, it doesn't matter about your car. If you don't understand how that car works, you're never going to fix it. Never, ever, ever.
I'm a lay person, right? I don't pretend to be an expert in this at all because I'm not, right? This is just my own opinion, right? They could still go to prison, and they could still be treated under a separate wing, which is part and parcel of a psychiatric hospital or a team that comes in, etc. Aniki's got a couple of points here. Thanks, Aniki, for dropping by. He says there's no rehabilitation. Lobotomy is the answer, and we can't reason with psychopaths. Before anybody says anything, hang on. Before anybody says anything against Fallen is putting a different viewpoint to generate discussion. This is not necessarily his personal point of view. I've got to keep saying this, but I don't want somebody attacking me and saying that you are right. You know,
I mean, it's just like BBA said, I've had children myself. I've been in that situation where I've had to escape garages from people who were wanting to do bad things to me as a child. I've been there. So my comments aren't based on I don't want to say, in some way, it's almost like I'm speaking because I've been there. I'm speaking because I may have a different, maybe it hasn't affected me that same way as it has other people or other people who haven't been there. So they don't really know what to do. They're just following what everybody else claims should be done. And it's just like that same kind of thing. If we don't understand that, myself, I've come to having children. I'd never want to harm a child, but I have to understand that I was in the position of someone harming me, and then understanding even within myself, if I let that, or what was to keep me from ever allowing that to enter my psyche, where somehow, some way in that grooming and all that nastiness that was done to me in that programming, to claim that I deserve to be killed now because somebody who did me wrong has jacked up my ability in my brain to know what's rational to me is different than what's rational to 90% of the other people on the planet, would want me stuck in a wood chipper and not understand everything that's taken place and put forth every effort they had to figure out how to combat that, instead of the wood chipper's the only combatant. Wood chipper that person. It's like, to me, somewhere in there, that brings out the other majority of the people's wanting to harm somebody because of their own beliefs, which is exactly the same as somebody wanting to harm somebody because of their beliefs. There's no different. It ends up being hypocrisy. It's just hypocrisy.
Okay, so at the moment, AGM is confused as to where you've gone, and he's got a bit lost, to say the least. UKT says, if a car has a mechanical fault with the brakes that you don't know what it is, do you continue to drive until you understand what it is and keep running people over, or do you take it off the road? So, to put this in the context slightly more, so if a person has a brain issue that's making them, mind issue, should say, forcing them to do these horrible things to minors, right? Do you put them away until such time as they're fit to go back or do you just leave them to rot? Because
I'm
they
glad
shouldn't
that
have
you
done it
went
in the
back to
first place,
chat. Because
right?
it's the same thing. If a company manufactured a car and put it out to the public, right? Now this company did that just as like other people are programming children. This company put a car out and the brakes are jacked up. Did you continue to drive it? Did you throw the car in the wood chipper? No, they go after the manufacturer. They go after
Okay,
the person that purposely
but,
knew
but
that and
But
did that stuff.
the manufacturer would do a recall on all cars because that is what the law says they have to do. Certainly
Absolutely.
over here, right? So a recall is done. Don't forget, I mean, Tesla had loads of recalls, and they still do get the occasional recalls. I've got a car which is 12 months old, and I still get recalls. I'm going to take it in because I'm the driver. I have to do what's responsible. Right, the responsible thing
Absolutely.
is to take it in. It costs me nothing other than a bit of time. Hey, it happens to us all, right? But it still goes off the road. But a mechanical thing or a software thing can be fixed. You cannot fix a mind. What
Well,
you can
that's not true.
fix, what
To
you
say
can
that you cannot fix a mind
you,
is
you let me
actually not a
let
true
me finish the
statement.
sentence. Let me finish the sentence.
Okay.
What I was about to say was, you can't fix the mind, but what you can do is to retrain, right? Which is what psychiatrists do and psychologists do. And it takes years sometimes. People with severe PTSD, they live with it, but they have to learn to live with it, right? And all we're saying, or this is saying, if it's a first time offence, put them behind bars for life, right? What you do with them behind bars, well, that is the state's responsibility, as in the government's responsibility, right? Yes, you can then try to retrain them to mend
And we
what
all
is
trust the
broken,
government.
but it's still not feasible, right? To do that. That's all I'm saying, right? We have to have a starting point, right? And that starting point to me is not the current situation where somebody can get away with something to do with children that they have abused, yet somebody else who's done exactly the same thing gets a couple of years, and then somebody else gets 10 years and maybe 25 years in some cases, if you're lucky, right? But there's no consistency. This would just put consistency to this particular crime. Because it is a crime. Whatever drove you to it, you still broke the law. You've still interfered with a minor. You've still exploited that minor. You have done damage to that minor, right? The understanding of it is irrelevant. The effects are more important to what that person has done to that child.
See,
Right?
now what you just said, Grim. Now think of what you just said, and then now know that a child came from that. Now, whether that person was caught or not, a child came from that, and now everybody wants to hold that child that came from that just as guilty and wood chipperish as the person that done that to him.
Okay,
And
all
to
right,
me,
okay.
that
So
would be wrong.
how far back, if you take it, if the liberals, shall we say, for want of a better expression, right? If the liberals turn around and object and use that, how far back do you go? Do you trace who was victimized first to whoever the first one was, right? It doesn't make any sense to do that.
Right.
It's
That's
not
why putting them
possible.
all in prison
So,
for just
so,
this little thing
so
for
lock
life
them all
is
up, or put that deterrent in there. That deterrent should be enough for most people not to commit the crime.
right. Most people. I mean, because I agree. There's a part of this that I agree with because it's like I don't want anybody to go through what I went through. But somehow within me, right, if I don't recognize what I went through in some way, Oh, see, this is really crazy because I could say, well, in some way, I was groomed. We were all groomed to be the people in some way that we are
Okay,
today.
right. Okay, let's try and keep a little bit on track here. AGM, I was talking, what Fallen was saying is that if somebody was the victim, they then become the perp. And I'm saying, if we're doing that, how far back do we go to discover what happened and when to who, and then you can find out whether or not they were ever caught afterwards, right? So the victim to me is the victim, the child is the victim of the original offence, right? Therefore, the person who did it, if they are caught, right,
Is a child.
Should.
They're a child acting on what
hang
they were
on.
done to as a child.
Possibly, right? So they have so what their reasoning is, well, this was done to me, so I'm doing it to everybody else because I think it's normal, right? What's wrong with that statement? Apart from everything.
Well,
right?
See, there's the thing. So throw them in jail forever. Life imprisonment because they don't understand.
Life imprisonment, okay. And I've also said to you, while they're enjoying their life imprisonment for what the crimes which they have done against minors, right? Regardless of whether there is what was done, right? They have committed this crime. They go away for life. That means that, guess what? They can get all the help that they want from their prison cell, right? And if, and only if, someone can turn around and say, Joe Bloggs, I'm sorry if Joe, I know you personally, but I know it wouldn't be you, but Joe Bloggs is now totally cured and he can go back into society, and we guarantee he will never do such a crime again.
You can't even do that with bank robbers or people who
so
kill
you keep
people.
them locked up, you take him off the streets, and more children are protected.
Right, but you can't. But you got to think across the board, right? Is that insane asylums? It's like people would say, "Make insane asylums great again," and it's like, but they use it for a different thing because is this person insane, or have they been programmed and groomed to think and feel the way they feel? And it's like you said, man, you can't cure the sickness, but maybe you could reprogram it. It's kind of like back in the day when somebody would think, oh, the government's a tyrannical thing. And they go, well, you need to go to a education camp and get reprogrammed to understand how the government's just there to help you and they'd never do anything against you that would want to harm you.
I'm talking about the sick crime against children. That's all we're talking about, right? What happens afterwards, right? Happens afterwards. We would need to see how that went. But remember, all I'm trying to say originally is that impact media have moved away from the standard First Amendment, and they are petitioning their government that the minimum sentence for anybody found guilty and convicted of any, in this case, sexual assaults against children, should get life as a bare minimum.
You're right. I need to go to their channel and I have the argument with them.
Well, you're not going to have the argument with them.
You can't petition the government. Who trusts the government to do what you claim should be the right thing?
Yeah, but it's still in the Bill of Rights to petition. Nothing says that they have to follow suit, but it does say in the Bill of Rights that you have the right to petition to your government.
Right. We have to figure out, honestly, Grim, I think that somewhere as society, we do have to figure out how to break that chain of abuse. I honestly do believe that.
I totally agree with you, and this is why I agree with what Impact is suggesting with Save a Child. It's the only way. If you get enough of them behind bars, first time, get rid of them, put them away, use that as a deterrent. That means more children are going to be protected long term. It's got nothing to do with the government. It's to do with the government standing up for the people, and in this case, for the children. But do you know what? Do you know why it won't go through? Because the children don't vote. They're not
They're
allowed
not
to
of age
vote.
of consent. That's what this whole thing is about.
No, they're not. They're not of age of consent to vote, but they're not also not at age to consent to any fiddling about from an adult, male or
Hey,
female.
so Grim, if I said to you that, see, so far am I in it to protect children that I don't think 15-year-olds should be with 15-year-olds. Neither of them are of age of consent. That I think if a 15-year-old's with the 15-year-old and a 14's with the 14, they're all considered that same crime. It's that same taking advantage of someone who's not of age of consent, that we can't sit there and go, well, if you're over this age, it's illegal. But if you're under this age, you can do with a minor anything you want to do with them. I think it all
No,
should be then across the board that's of doing something with someone who isn't age of consent. So there's
this
no way they could ever consent it.
so in other words, it's any form of sexual abuse with a minor, whether that be a minor on a minor or whether that be an adult. It's the same thing. There's no distinction.
Absolutely, it's all
To me,
sexual attack upon a minor.
there is no distinction, right? To me, there's no distinction, right? If someone's 14 and they attack a 9-year-old, or they're a 9-year-old and they attack a 14-year-old, and there's a group of the 9-year-olds, it's exactly
If
the
they're
same.
14 and 14.
If they're 14, doesn't matter.
They're all grooming. They're all grooming that other person to consent to something they're not of legal age to consent to.
But it is understandable, right, that teenagers, in particular, they have their own code, shall we say, and they always talk about these things.
Code is not law.
No, let me finish. You're doing it again. Right?
I know. Sorry.
So they have this code, if you unwritten code, they talk amongst themselves, etc. Right? They say, who are you dating? How far have you gone? You got past first base, second base, etc. Right? And all the rest of it. Right? That you can't, as UK says, it's very difficult to prosecute one against another. Right? You'd have to prosecute both, because they're both as guilty in this situation, right? But what I'm saying,
it depends on who started it, right? Because if anybody got speeding, they wouldn't go, well, they got to go to a different court, but they're still going to be processed as being under that age. So to claim some code that people have.
So no, I'm talking about an unwritten code. I'm not talking about code in law or anything, right? The point is, and I think we strayed away from it, and thank you, UK, for bringing us back. The difference is, regardless of any laws, a grown adult should not be looking at any child in any sexual manner.
Absolutely.
That is what we are all in agreement with. And if you are guilty
and we don't. As adults, we don't. I mean, think about it. Go talk to another adult you know and go, are you attracted? So something else is wrong. Something else is wrong, because adults don't do that.
But the thing is, adults do, unfortunately. Some adults do, right? What I am trying to put across, right, is that any form of sexual harm, right, interference, call it what you like, against a minor, right? If you are found guilty, instead of there being no rule of thumb, that's taken out of the judge's hands, right? And the minimum term is life imprisonment.
So have we followed along in this, right, Grim? Have we followed along to understand that adults don't do that? And as you claimed, only
Some
minors
folks do.
or underage people somewhere there's an unwritten code. So if we all don't understand as
No.
intelligently
You've got the wrong
accessible
end of the
people.
stick. You've got the wrong end of the stick, right?
Okay.
Honestly, right? What I actually said was teenagers have an unwritten code. They talk amongst themselves. They use social media or whatever, right? And they talk about what they've been doing, right? It's gossip. Sometimes it's true, sometimes it isn't, right? I'm saying, okay, if both parties agreed, then they're both as guilty as each other. However, we're not actually talking about that. We've gone away from the original conversation yet again. So I want to try and bring it back, which is that this petition is about adults who harm children, right? And the minimum term of punishment should be life imprisonment. That standardizes things, right? And the guy who's doing it, Impact Media, isn't doing it for any, I hate to use this phrase, but self-gratification, right?
Nice
So
one.
it's not the word I wanted to use, but it's the only one that sort of fits, but for different reasons. He's not doing it so that he feels better about himself or anything like that. He's doing it and working with others in a massive collaboration with Save a Child to put pressure to petition the government to put a minimum life sentence in if somebody is found guilty of sexually harming a child in any way, a minor, right? And it's over here.
You think
the age of consent is 16, right? The only thing which it is perfectly legal if a child who is over the age of 16 gives consent. There's nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly legal. However, if they were to send images of each other to each other, then they're breaking the law if the person is below 18, right? So that in itself, right, if let's say that was the definition over in the States, if you're found guilty, it's still the same thing. It's still causing harm to a minor, because images which are sent backwards and forwards across the internet, there should be no distinction between that and somebody else, right? You're guilty of that. You're guilty of receiving it. Again, it could just be something which they weren't aware of, etc. But ignorance isn't a defence as such. However, it is a consideration. This is why there is no consistency in sentencing. But this particular petition is about the sexual gratification that an adult takes out on a minor, and if found guilty, even if it's their first offence that they've been found guilty on, it should be life imprisonment. And that is just, if nothing else, it's a deterrent to stop what's been going on. Because let's face it, self-preservation, if I get caught, I'm going to be sent away for life. Okay, I'll go and put my engines into something else, or return for hell.
That stops.
Whatever.
I mean, actually, Grim, that stops a lot of people, right? I mean, honestly, I will agree to that, because we used to have a saying back in the day that, 16 to get you 20. You know what I mean? To try to get people in that understanding with themselves. You don't mess around with somebody that's 16, because you can get thrown in jail for 20 years. So it was like, even in that fear factor, it was going on a long time ago, to like deter that no matter what person came up to you, if you didn't get their age as a first starting point to whether or not your relationship was even going to progress, it was like that age was a factor. I mean, that was like straight up. And then people started lying. And then it's like, then that gets all kinds of crazy. But I'm not saying that fear isn't a good deterrent.
Yeah.
Because fear is a good deterrent.
Right. Okay, so UKT is saying that not so much about both children agreeing, because neither can agree. From a point of law, he's correct, right? But for a crime, there has to be a victim and a suspect, or a victim and a perpetrator, right?
Absolutely.
Right. So, if somebody fantasizes about a child and follows it through, or whatever, you with me, and they end up harming a child because of them putting their own needs before the needs of a child, let's put it that way, right?
But they never know that. But
Then,
they never know that because that's the police or somebody there. It's somebody who's not 13. It's somebody that doesn't fit the crime of a child or a minor. They're being put in prison because of some made up fantastical story that isn't really true. It's just made up. And they're
right.
being held
This is part
responsible.
and parcel of the investigation. There has to be substance. There has to be evidence. There has to be, like I said earlier, technical know-how which proves beyond a shadow of a doubt. This is what they have to prove to the 12 people on the jury, right? If they have done their job properly and they have proven it, and it is been determined that the person is guilty, then the minimum term should be life imprisonment. That is what this whole petition is all about. And by having that as a deterrent, it will hopefully reduce the number of offences made against minors by adults. And
will it get rid of offenses made against adults by minors?
No,
because it's almost like swatting, right? You can make a bunch of claims to people. That doesn't mean it's true, but everybody's going to act on whatever that, we could just call it hearsay, was. Now, I'm not advocating nothing bad against minors again.
Okay, all right. Back to you, UKT. UKT has raised another point, all right? And he's correct. But if you are told if they're told that they're talking to a 13-year-old, it could be a 10-year-old, whatever, at that point, it's the adult's responsibility to cut contact. So if at any time the adult has any suspicion that the child is under the age of consent, right, of what the law is, again, that would have to be determined by over in the States from a federal point of view, because some states have different rules between 16 and 21-year-olds where they can only be with their own group, their same age group. Thanks, UK, for pointing that out, right? If it was federal, right, and they said, right, anybody under the age of 16, it is illegal to have any sort of sexual relationship with, right? And as soon as the adult finds out that they are of that age or under, then at that point, it is the responsibility of the adult to stop the communications and to desist from any perverse activities moving forward. Right?
Hey, I'm going to go out on a limb, Grant.
You see where
because
you see where we're going.
Who makes a category? Who makes the category in that? And because I'm not no way am I advocating freaking nothing against the child, but who then makes that category go, well, if you're within this age, it's okay for you to have this kind of contact. But if you miss that age by a year or 2 years, we're going to find you guilty of some kind of horrific freaking crime, because who puts that age gap on there?
I'll answer that. The age of consent in the UK and Great Britain is 16.
So under that age, that can consent.
Anybody under that age cannot consent for an adult to do
life imprisonment. Life imprisonment, right there. Get them to not do it.
So this is what it's about for me. It's about having such a deterrent right? If you cross that line, your life as you know it will be removed and you will be put in a 6 foot by 2 foot cell or whatever the dimensions are for the rest of your life, right? That is a deterrent. Unfortunately, some people will not see it as a deterrent and will carry on regardless. But they're the people who will be put behind bars, right? But what I'm saying is it will reduce the number of victims that are produced year in, year out across the states. And if it ever happened over here, we got something decent in place, it would be a deterrent over here as well, right? It's something positive to protect the children. And there's no, to me, there isn't a grey area.
I will agree with you,
children.
What if I said I agree with you? That I
You
agree wholeheartedly with you, but in that aspect, that if I claimed that in that agreement, there's no gray area. So you can't start putting age limits on it to go 19 and 16, that's forever in jail. 16 and 16 is cool. You can do that to your heart's content. That there's no gray area. It has to be under age of consent, life imprisonment. Life imprisonment. There's no gray area.
I agree. Personally speaking, I would agree with that. And I'll tell you one of the reasons why. It might actually bring some morals back to teenagers for starters.
Absolutely.
They might learn a few things, right? And it's nothing to, before somebody says around and says, oh, that's a religious point of view. No, it's not. It's just my own personal point of view, right? And I've lived through many decades where promiscuity, that's the wrong way of putting it, but where children are being promiscuous, I still can't say it properly, but you know where I'm coming from. That is part and parcel of their growing up. However, if there is a victim and if there is a perpetrator, then it should be dealt with according to the law. Okay, if that law says that they need to go to prison for a minimum term of life, then that's the way it is, right? You can't have one rule for one and one rule for another, in my opinion. But what we are referring to here, in particular, and I'm bringing it back to this because that's a totally different conversation, right? Between ages with under as a minor, right? What I'm getting at here, and what everybody is also trying to remind us in the chat, it is about a grown adult, right, which has nothing in common with a child whatsoever, right? If they don't know them, why the hell are they talking to them, right? Other than, oh, sorry, didn't mean to get in your way. You with me? Polite, and you walk off if it's outside. You wouldn't go to a website to have a conversation with a child, but some do. So if doing that to get your own sexual satisfaction and gratification, right, from doing that and talking to a child, that in itself should put you behind bars for life, because you are unsafe to be in the public and to be associated with anybody except your own kind.
Right. But that's a programming, right? I don't know if we can all agree on it or not, but that's an actual programming. I mean, and understanding that that's people being programmed. Hey, when you're of this age, you don't do that. That's also a programming. I'm not saying I don't want anything bad to happen to children. Don't get me wrong.
Right. I'm trying to stay away from the ideological, philosophical argument, because to me, it's black and white. Right? If you are an adult and you harm a child, right, in this sexual way, in any sexual way, then you should be serving life imprisonment as a bare minimum if you are caught and when you are caught. Because if you're not caught, you're not doing it because that deterrent is there. There's only going
You
to
know
be,
what's really weird?
and I'll use this phrase, right? The real sickos who will do it because they believe in their heartless souls, right? That what they're doing is right. I don't
Okay, so
care
you know
what
what's
put that not. I don't care what put that in their heads or how they got that in their heads. They are still got that in their heads, and they are following through. That to me is so wrong. The deterrent isn't working. They deserve to be put behind bars for life, or wood shredder, or maybe a 9 mil. Right? Either way, it's not right. It's
You
not
know
right
what's
in our society, and
grim?
it's about time society took these people from the trees that they're hiding and got them down in on the ground and got rid of them once and for all. Our children would be safe, a lot
Absolutely.
safer, and that's all.
As our children.
This is
But grim.
why. This is why impact media have gone down this route of petitioning the government so that they can make change to protect all children, all minors, and to make it a federal crime with a federal outcome of a minimum term for life imprisonment. Right?
Hey,
If they're found not guilty, they're found not guilty. If they're found
I have a
guilty,
question. I have a question though. In that outlook, right, is the same thing as I like arguing the argument, right? Because that's all
oh, I
I'm
know you
doing is
do.
just arguing the argument. So
I
if I
know
said to you
you always
that
come
if
up for a good
somebody
argument.
came in, right, if somebody came in and let's say this girl, and she's like, this dude isn't harming me, man, this dude I care about. Are they actually going to consider that? Or are they going to go, no, we said that age gap right there is the exact thing so that they don't consider anything and they claim, no, we're now going to imprison that dude because they're going to say that person wasn't his consent, but she could have consented to a 15-year-old. She could consider to a 17-year-old, but because
Okay.
that person was 19 and she consented to, that we're going to claim, no, you don't have the right to do that in that same kind of thing. Who's to claim, who's to say in that court that that was harming a child? Just to say in that non-gray area that everything's black and white, that it's like there's always going to be that Venn
There's harm.
diagram.
Okay, there's harm. 19-year-old who gets involved in a 15-year-old and the 15-year-old consents. They don't legally have the right to consent because they're a
Say
minor. They're under
18,
16.
say
Right?
17, say 19 and 17.
Depends on what the age of consent is. I'm referring to the age of consent here, right, in the UK. If a 19-year-old has a relationship, or even a 38, 40, 60, whatever, has a relationship with a 16-year-old, right, that's legal, right? But if they started that and they had a relationship before they were 16, then they could be seen as grooming that child, right? And if they're found guilty of that, then again, it would be life. It's the ultimate deterrent, right? Now, yeah, 19-year-old, yeah, there's confusion here between the states and ourselves, right? That's why I was keeping it at 16, because that's the age of consent here. It depends on whereabouts you live in the states as to what the age of consent is, because there's no federal mandate on it. It's all done by the different states. Some states agree, some don't.
You know how to keep the feds away from you is don't say, I'm moving to Britain. Get it? That was a joke. I'm sorry about that. But
No,
you
and
said
I
the
would
age of consent is 16, so everybody
it's
who's
here,
in the
yeah.
United States is like, well, we're heading over there.
Yeah,
It's like,
well,
oh,
that's
no,
not.
you're not.
Well, yeah, all right, they get a visa for it. Okay.
Like, you ain't coming over here, buddy.
Right, it's not often there's humour in this subject, but that.
Sorry.
All right. I think that the majority of people here who have listened and come in would probably agree that although it is something which is I would say on a wish list, right? There's nothing wrong in petitioning your government for such an outcome and standardization from top tier level law, right? In the Americans' case, it's federal, right? Downwards. This petition is to mandate anybody who is found guilty of committing any sexual harm in any way, shape, or form to a minor should get life imprisonment upon being convicted. And the reason behind, and I am surmising from this, and I'm trying to give a little bit of leeway to earlier discussions, this would allow for any potential appeal made against the judgment while that person is in prison serving life, if new evidence turns up in relation that could not be known at the time. We've seen it over the years where people have been wrongly convicted of murder when we had capital punishment in Great Britain, and we found years later that they actually couldn't have done it, so they were given a posthumous pardon. That was a phrase I was thinking of earlier, right? As a result, where the state has turned around and said, actually, the judicial system, that wasn't available, but this now proves that they couldn't have done it, so we will give them a posthumous pardon. There's nothing else they can do. It happened many years ago. They can't bring the person back to life, but these things happen, right? So if you ignore the wood chipper discussion and the 9 mil to save finances, there is always that slim possibility that science may catch up and prove somebody who was wrongly convicted as being innocent. And if that is the case, so be it. But
Right, because
remember,
somebody's liable to be convicted of any shape or form. Just those words in themselves, in the meaning and the complications and the understanding of any shape or form. It's like, if that's really true, if that's what they're advocating and they put in their petition before the thing is, those words of whether they're listening or not listening to this broadcast or this channel is to understand is like, does anybody understand? Does anybody understand? Can they go in the chat and tell you what any shape or form actually means legally? Any shape or form. If they're
any
found
form,
guilty.
sorry, what are you referring to, Fallen? You're
I'm
saying
just
shape or
referring
form.
to the words of found guilty
What I'm saying is that if they are convicted beyond any reasonable doubt at the time, subject to all evidence that is available, right, they should get life imprisonment. There shouldn't be anything under that, because that is the minimum term once found guilty. However, this would also mean that if science or technology or whatever can prove at a later date, whether that be 10 years, 15, 21 year, right, that they didn't do it, right, and they are actually innocent, they have the right of appeal and to use that evidence in their case, and then they would go through a whole retrial, right? That's all I'm saying, right? Because obviously that evidence wasn't available, right? But now it is, because things have changed. A bit of science has changed, and a little bit of technology has changed, and so has the law of physics as well. But at the end of the day, right, it's new evidence, and that should be the person who's been convicted should have the right to use that in an appeal. I'm not, because that way you're not shutting the door permanently. You're just shutting it until such time as your legal advisors can find something to try and get you out of jail. Ain't going to happen, but there's a possibility. It's like turning around and saying, "Oh, while you're in there, we'll cure you." You can't cure that sort of sick mind. Sorry, it's not possible. But this would be a deterrent against it and potentially could save so many children. It's unbelievable. Hundreds of thousands of victims could be saved and not have the same issues due to the fact that they were messed with as a minor sometime in the past that they lived with for the remainder of their lives, yet someone can get away with 10 years and come out after 7 with a license for 3. And once their 10 years has been done, they're free and clear, you know? Because they can't stay on.
That's the tricky thing, right? I think you're getting across is that some people that get caught in that or that do that have that mindset to do that after they do the 10 years. I mean, because it is like written, right? It's like, I served my time for the crime I did. It doesn't matter what crime that you did. It's like, you really have no right as a society to hold that against me again, because I paid my price to society, what you people believed that I deserved for that crime that I committed. So I agree that a lot of people would go out of jail going, you can't hold me responsible for that anymore. You can't do that. It's like almost against the law for people to do that, to continue
which
hold
is
that
the
against
reason,
them.
again, this is the reason why I have a problem with inconsistent judgments, right? And this is, I don't agree with somebody who is for the same sentencing, shall we say, sorry, for the same crime which has been proven, one person getting 3 years and one getting 10. That doesn't make any sense to me at all, right? And it's totally illogical. So you should have minimum term sentences. Anything above that's fine, but minimum term, because you've got to think about the victim. The victim.
What if I said to you, though, Grim? What if I said to you, there is that gray area? That's why those terms are separate. But the fact that they have to register. Now, this is like non-negotiable. These people have to register. So that in itself.
Hang on a second. They have to register and tell the police where they've moved to if they moved. Right now, that's could be for 10 years, could be for 15, but to be told to be registered for life would be against their human rights in certain circumstances, as it's been proven, right? Certainly over here, but the justice system itself, once they've done the time, technically they've done their time. The problem is this is a very emotive subject because the child has to live with that for the rest of their lives, and the damage can never ever be repaired. You learn to live with it one way or another, right? Or you don't.
Right. You could even be put in the wood chipper because somehow when you were a child, this stuff was done to you, and then your mind is jacked so that you somehow do something. I mean, it's just an argument, Graham. It's just an argument.
I know it's just an argument, and this is I'm not taking it. I'm not having a go at you. All I'm saying is, if you take the outcome, right, to be a minimum term in prison, that will reduce the amount of crime being done because of the deterrent. And UKT says it says that the justice system cannot be held against them. It says nothing about the public can't hold it against them. I agree totally, because the public still have the right of free speech or right of free expression. However, when these sentencings are put in place, and why there's so many inconsistencies, I'll never know. But if you have a minimum term of life imprisonment, that's life imprisonment. It's a minimum term. That is the people via the government telling the judicial system, If they are found guilty with beyond the shadow of a doubt in a court of law by a jury of their own peers, then the minimum sentencing is life. It's non-negotiable. That's all I'm saying. And I agree with that. Right? I don't agree that these people should do 10 years, be put on a license for the rest of their lives, which means jack all, right? Because nobody ever monitors, right? Very rare that that the police have time to monitor what's going on, or do, because they're not even allowed to go around and check they still live there. It's down to the person on the register to tell the police that they've moved. If they don't, then they can go back inside because it's part and parcel of their license. Right?
Well, we can just get rid of all of them then if they can't do their job.
Or alternatively, there are schemes afoot, certainly in Great Britain, where these offenders may agree to chemical castration and be released early under license for the remainder of their sentence. The problem I have with that, as I said, it does not mean that they won't do something again. It just means that it will change the way that they do it.
That just means they can't get anybody pregnant. Or they can't bring forth some offspring from what they do. So
yes.
I agree in that.
But it's not just that. It's to do with controlling their urges. I don't believe that is the case. Yes, UK, I agree totally. A license means nothing over here. It means normal members of the public can't access the list. The only way they can find out is they can ask if there's any known offenders in an area. You can't actually necessarily get the names of the people directly. Yeah, there are always ways of doing it, of course. But the point I'm trying to make... Is that because
of privacy? Grim, is that the reason you can't get names? Is that because of a privacy thing or something?
There's certain, you can, if you're in a relationship with somebody, you can request information about that person to find out whether or not there's a risk, etc. Under certain circumstances. I think that's called Sarah's Law over here. However, what I would say is that if you find that there is known licensed paedophiles in the area, you'll just be told, yes, in such and such an area, in a postcode area, zip code in America, the equivalent, there are 4 known offenders. And they're still called offenders because they're on the register. And there was a case not so long ago where somebody had been on the register for 15 years, argued in a court of law that it was against their human rights for them to be left on the register after 15 years and they hadn't done anything wrong, not even got a speeding ticket. Right? And
that's a tough one.
And if I remember right, he actually won the case.
Because that's a tough
because one. It was never put in the sentencing. It was put on it for a certain length of time. That's the way it was worded, and it was beyond that point, and that's the reasoning why he objected to it. So take all of that out and just get the sentencing right, folks, with the biggest or the worst, if you like, of 2 potential outcomes, and go for the better one, which is putting them behind bars for life. UK. I understand that they are supposed to notify schools, etc., if they move the offender into the area, which they don't. Where they never follow up on it. They don't do it right. They never have done. The police are a waste of space from that point of view. But as I say, I'm just asking people to look at this and potentially support it. If you're over in the States, do I think that you've got a chance? There's always a chance of it getting through. But then you're getting into the politics of it, and I don't get. To me, there shouldn't be any politics in it. It's black and white. And
Hey,
I have every
I don't-
sympathy in the world for the victim and the collateral damage around them, which also includes their family. And I also have sympathy or empathy for the family of the perpetrator who didn't know anything about it and couldn't, because they kept it so well hidden. Right? Because that's what they do. The devious bastards. Want of a better expression. So yes,
that's what I was going to say.
I
Is
have
all the innocent,
empathy.
all the innocent
I have
people,
empathy
right?
for all the innocent people involved. You know, and the fact that families have had to move from one area to another because of what an offspring did that had nothing to do with the family. You know, and there was no excuse for it, shall we say. Right? They just did it because they thought it was right, or whatever's wrong in the head, you know. They put two and two together and they came up with 950, you know, whatever, right? There's something wrong, it's something that can't be fixed. No point in trying to fix shit. You can't do it, you flush it, you know.
Well, I think education could fix it to a certain point, right? Because what you said is you're right, man. There's a lot of innocent people. And that's one of the things that I guess in some way I'm advocating for is like the innocence in people, because how did the parents know? How would the parents know that they delivered their child up when they took them to swimming lessons, that their child got put through all of this stuff? And yet then the parents are like, well, we didn't know little Jimmy was that way. So how could, but they actually, in some way within themselves that they don't recognize, they delivered their child straight up to the person. But in some way, then they would claim that they're innocent. We never knew. But what you did do
Okay.
was that.
So I have spoken with people who are collateral damage through this, and that's parents of the abused and the family of the abused, and also the family of the convicted. Right? To try, this is in my past, to try and find some understanding. And you can't blame the family because they're not the ones who did it. It was the person who did it and has been sentenced. The problem I have is the inconsistency of the sentencing, and they ignore two things. One, the victim. Two, that they are obviously a menace to society and are unsafe to be out in the public. And if they're unsafe to be out in the public, they need to be locked up for life.
Right.
That's just
I think
my own
everybody
personal
needs
opinion.
education. I think everybody needs education in that aspect of, even though if we lock these people up and we do whatever, I still think that society as their collective need education because, right, you can't blame the parents, but I think in some way that in that education that there could have been flags, right? The parents always come back in 2020. It's like hindsight's always 2020 to go, man,
Yeah.
you know, this happened and I should have,
But you
and
see,
it's a shame because.
But then they live with what's known as secondary guilt, right? Which is part and parcel of the collateral damage. They also need support, but there is no support for the parents of the family or the close friends of the convicted paedophile. And there's only so much support which is available for the victim and the victim's family. It's certainly not lifelong. which again is a shame that people forget about the victims, forget about the collateral damage. Okay, but let's concentrate. This is about concentrating on the one that is convicted. And this is why I'm in support of Impact Media's petition. And if I lived in the States, I would sign up and I would join the hundreds, or no matter how many it is, on the petition. I would join up, I would sign up for it. And if you live in the United States, I certainly would strongly advise that you use the link that's pinned, go over to Impact Media and read the information which they put on their post, and you can still subscribe to them, although the only information they're doing is putting posts up regarding other 1A auditors that are around potentially, but also they are updating people regarding this petition and this cause, which is Save a Child. And I think anybody who doesn't support it, then you need to think, why would you not support something that protects minors ultimately? You know,
That's always the catch-22, Grim. Is then that's why tyrants in some way. And I'm not again advocating harm to children. It's just that's what people always do. Well, you don't support it, therefore you hate children, or you don't want to protect children. That in itself is a fallacy. When people say that, are going, if you don't support this, there's something wrong with you. It's like, there again, I would claim that's somebody that may be exploiting children in that aspect. And that's only me, and again, keeping true to who I am, that I check everybody who says that kind of thing and going, if you don't support this, then you don't care about children.
No, I haven't actually said that. What I said was, you need to think this through the reasoning why. Maybe you think that the minimum term is too harsh. That's fine. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, and if you disagree, then fine, you disagree. If you want to voice your disagreement, I've got no problem with that. I've got no problem with what Foreign has been doing, which is twisting the argument. He doesn't like the phrase, but I'll use it anyway because I know it will annoy him a bit. He's playing devil's advocate, and that's something which I would normally do, and I've done with BBA and a few other people, because I know what buttons to press. And it can be quite different. But to me, this is a very serious subject. I'm not doing that, I'm not pressing anybody's buttons, hopefully. I'm just telling you how it is, and this is the state of play, this is what's going on. And I'm fully behind it. I'm not expecting everybody to be fully behind it. If you are, fantastic. If you're not, that's your right. That, as they say, is between you and your God. Got nothing to do with it.
I agree with you that this is a very serious subject. I agree wholeheartedly. And I'm glad that I've been a follower of your channel for a long time. And I do agree in that this discourse, or public discourse, or arguing from reason, is in some way what drives us forward as a society, so that we don't get trapped in echo chambers and just people who agree that are afraid to disagree. Is because, again, I would say to you that I'm grateful that you brought me on, and that we have known each other for a while, and we've had Discord for a while, so that we could take a mutual respect of each other's opinions or trains of thoughts, because that's the only way we can move forward as an intelligence, as a collective, is to have, like you put in your thing, argue the argument. Don't argue the person. And so that no matter what anybody thinks in chat or anything, this is an argument of a Yeah,
I mean, some people have misunderstood what has been said because the wrong word is used, shall we say, right? And that can be done, that can just be said without even thinking about it. I've probably done it a few times myself, because I do see things as black and white. I don't see it as in this particular subject, I don't see any grey. It's about potentially protecting so many hundreds of thousands of children. And that's the reason why I support it, because I can't see an alternative to, that is going to protect children and have the biggest, no pun intended on this one, impact. Now, if you were to ask me, do I think they're going to do it? The answer's got to be no. But only time will tell. But you want to go and check it out. Anyway, Fallen, we've been going for 2.5 hours.
We sure have.
I can't believe it.
I wanted to say this one last thing in kind of closing is that, we can put authority over protecting our children, but we as individuals and we as parents and mothers and fathers, if we ourselves don't put that effort that's needed in what has to be done in searching and understanding ourselves, what protects our family and what protects our children, so that we ourselves don't put them into precarious situations. And we ourselves had to understand that we somewhere within ourselves have failed our children. Not that we delivered them up to other people, right?
All right, okay. So in some situations, I would agree, we can only take as many precautions that we can, right? But you can't cover every eventuality, right?
Right.
So from that point of view, yes, I agree, but I'm going to agree to disagree, because there is no right or wrong answer with that, because you do what is best for your child, I believe. Right, that is what a parent's aim is, to do the best that they can. You can't be with them 24 hours a day. So you have to, you would say, groom, program, right? Okay, your children to be able to recognize certain situations as being dangerous and what to do, right? And YouTube has been great for highlighting those sort of things, as I've seen children then actually take on Karens, right? And also take on the police, because they know what their rights are and they know what they should do. I can't fault that. And I'm not going to drag any parent down for not doing their best, because I actually believe that majority of parents do their best.
We do the best we can.
Right? Given the circumstances. But as I say, it's been great having a chat with you. All right.
Thank you.
I am going to be coming back with more chats, getting back to what we used to do. The music is always going to be over on the sister channel, Grim Reaper music channel, Grim Reaper's music channel. If you want to listen to music, go over there. Please subscribe. I can run some lives over there. That is all about supporting people through mental health crisis, personal crises, everything and anything. Unlike, it's not like my wife's music channel, which is all about lovey-dovey garbage, right? The goddess of love. I wanted to see something which I thought might be useful for people who just need to listen to some positivity, or to listen to how other people may feel as well, and also to know that there's always going to be support for them. But that's
Greg,
my second
I
channel.
think your wife is beautiful. I just want to tell you that. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I also think that your wife is beautiful.
Okay, well, there might be a cure for that. I'm not sure. Maybe life imprisonment, you might find a cure. I'm only joking, folks. Only joking. Right, I'm going to play out with the same video that introduced us. right at the beginning, only because I think it's the right thing to do. It's in support of, as I say, for Impact Media. All the information, funnily enough, is on the film and in the song, but it is about saving our kids. Is there any final things you want to say for them before we go?
Oh, I just said it. I'm sorry, I interrupted, but yeah.
No. Just wanted to check. I didn't want to just end it without giving you the opportunity. All right, then,
No
folks.
worries.
Thanks very much for
Thank you.
joining us. And it's been great having a fallen up here. And of course, BBA, who dropped off probably because of his internet. Again, either that or there was a family emergency. Anyway, folks, enjoy the rest of Valentine's Day. And there's a pun in there somewhere, I think. Take care, folks. Bye for now.
Kitchen clock, 2 a.m. Heard the whisper, not again. Little shoes by the door, tiny voice, isn't my fault. You'd change the law if you saw that face, curled on a mattress, hiding in place. Save one child, that's a lifetime turning, that's a future learning what love feels like. Save one child, that's a chain all breaking. Every law we're making should start right now. If it saves one child, write your name, say it out loud. Paper stack on your screen, just some letters from DC, but in the lines between each phrase, there's a name, there's a name, there's a face, there's a face. We count the votes while they count scars. That's a future learning what trust feels like. Save one child, that's a door flung open. Every word you've spoken can lift them out. If it saves one child, sign your name, say it out loud, yeah. A state line thing, it's everything. Save one child, that's a lifetime turning, that's a heartbeat burning through the dark nights. Save one child, that's a past rewritten, every law petition, a promise vow. Saves one child, raise your hand.